We are now on air. Time for a total takeover.
It's finally here. Welcome to a new episode.
It's about to go down.
So why are people rejecting this? Well, part of the reason is that while Joe Biden was making a fool of himself, going on about trans seniors, Americans are getting poorer, and they feel it. There's no hiding it. Many Americans can barely afford to live in their own country. Watch.
Year to year, meat, fish, poultry, and eggs jumped almost 14%. Used cars and trucks up 35%. Gas up 48%. Blame a tangle of pressures. Supply chain issues. Trucks waiting up to 30 hours to cross from Mexico into Texas. Labor shortfalls.
Oh, a food shortage. How many revolutions have been spurred by food shortages? Most of them. And the food that is available is quickly becoming hard to afford for people. But the Biden administration barely acknowledges this. Their solution? Flood the country with 2 million new people. They might all be good people. It doesn't matter. The volume is what matters. More people, fewer resources. What does that look like? More shortages. Here's our own Bill Melugin.
In Eagle Pass, Texas, it's a scene that plays out every morning. Just after sunrise, migrants make their move, wading across the Rio Grande, entering the U.S. illegally, and they continue to come from all around the world. They come in historic numbers. CBP in March alone reporting more than 221,000 migrant encounters. That's the highest number in more than 2 decades. The river can be deadly. Fox News this week witnessed the bodies of multiple drowned migrants being pulled from the water. On the International Bridge in Eagle Pass, as the end of Title 42 on May 23rd looms, groups of migrants are expelled back to Mexico every 30 minutes.
Right. So it's just supply and demand. If you're having a dinner party and you had just enough food for 12 people, but you invited 1,200 people, that would mean not everyone got to eat, right? Competition for scarce resources like food and gasoline is a huge, huge problem. But there are other effects, by the way. While most people coming over the border are simply looking for a better life, they're good people, they want to work. Some of them aren't good people and they don't want to work, they want to sell fentanyl. And they are. And that means a lot more overdoses.
Georgia health officials say fentanyl has infiltrated street drugs. Just a few days ago, the GBI and Gwinnett County Sheriff's Office made a major bust. Among the drugs, a quarter kilo of fentanyl. They say that equals more than 100,000 deadly doses.
6 men were rushed to the hospital Thursday. Investigators saying they overdosed on a cocaine cocktail laced with fentanyl.
The Seattle field office of the DEA has confiscated 1.1 million fentanyl pills, 200 guns from cartel drug traffickers in the Northwest just in the last 4 months.
The problem, they say, fentanyl is too affordable and too available.
It's just specific here because people can come here all over and get it dirt cheap and not get no consequences here.
Well, once upon a time, Joe Biden made this promise to his vice president.
We do the same thing Brock and I. We have lunch alone once a week. That's the deal when we're both in country, which we will be for a while because of COVID. And I see her, all the time.
Flash forward to today, and amid reports of fighting between their staffers, and it seems like Joe is avoiding Kamala like the plague. According to public records reviewed by Real Clear Politics, Biden has only lunched twice this year with his vice president. That comes as liberals fume over this Politico headline for referring to Kamala Harris by her first name. They see it as disrespectful, sexist, and of course, racist. So, Greg, Brian Kilmeade was telling me you promised him lunch every week and that you've been blowing him off.
Yeah.
He's very upset about it.
Well, he likes to cut my food, which is what Biden keeps asking Kamala to do. That's why they're not having lunch together anymore, because he'd come down and he'd mistake her for the nurse and say, "Could you cut my food?" This whole first name business being sexist. I mean, tell that to Beyonce or Madonna or Geraldo. If you have a unique name, Kamala's a unique name. You know exactly there's only one Kamala, thank God. But I can't go by Greg, even though I'm probably the most famous Greg on the planet. And I include Greg Evigan and Greg Brady and Greg Morris from Mission Impossible.
Greg Louganis.
Greg Louganis. But I'm still bigger than them. But, so there you go.
So, Will, my thought when I heard this was, who has time to actually sit down and have lunch with anybody anymore? I don't have time to have lunch for an hour with someone.
Joe Biden's played the politics of this like a beautiful instrument. I mean, everyone knows that, at least in sports, you want to make sure your backup quarterback isn't as good as you. So when he plays, there's never any threat he replaces you in the job. I know that I'm Kilmeade's backup along with Hegseth for Fox and Friends, and Kilmeade's made that the case because he knows I'm never going to take his job. Joe Biden knows Kamala Harris is never taking his job. He's ultimately safe, and he doesn't have to have lunch with her to prove that fact.
Once those pictures come out of Kilmeade, though, you're set.
Yeah.
We still have those?
Yeah, I'm going to get them to you tonight.
Send the copies
and
to
we'll
you.
drop them off. Yeah, get it to the Post.
All right, Harold, they're blaming this on staffers fighting with each other, but is that an excuse?
You know, it's maybe convenient, but I'll tell you this. I'm a traditionalist and old-fashioned. I think you call the president, vice president, vice president. I thought the Democrats were wrong when they called Donald Trump Donald, and I mean, maybe if you know him well, but I think if you're the president, you call him by the title. Two, COVID is a reason why they probably aren't doing the kinds of sit-downs that they were often doing, and I do think what they should be doing when they do have lunch is figuring out how they get their poll numbers up. And if you're concerned about getting your poll numbers up, you're going to be representing and serving people who feel underserved, and to the point that Van Jones made, there were a lot of promises, and there's been a massive underdelivery in a lot of instances. Admit to it, cop to it. Go to Arizona, go to Texas. Katie, you're right. Go to these places and give a speech about what the country is going to do to fix our border. Go to Chicago, go to Cleveland, go to Memphis, go to Baltimore. Every week I'd go to these cities and meet with these police chiefs and DAs and say, what do you need me to do? Put a plan on the table to reform cashless bail across the country. There were some good things I was trying to do, but the result has not been great. That's what they should be having lunch about. That's what they should be meeting about. And I hope as the president, if they do put him out on the road, I hope that's what he's doing
Judge,
as opposed to something else.
What if it was the opposite? What if the vice president doesn't want to necessarily have lunch with the president?
No, you know what I think? I do agree with Greg. I think that Kamala got tired of having to cut the food for Joe. But what I also think is Joe got tired of her laughing all the time because she laughs all the time. All the food ends up on his plate. I mean,
Can you
it's
imagine that
just a terrible situation.
Oh, they just fight.
And I disagree. I think COVID, if anything, provides more of an opportunity for them to have lunch together because nobody's going out. You know, look at Putin. You put, Greg and I could have lunch. Putin they'd be all at the other end. They could have lunch together. Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is you could have a long table. You can still have lunch and not worry about COVID. You know what? I think she's very picky. She wants everything to be about race and about sexism. Remember, she didn't like it when people didn't stand up when she walked into a room. I mean, she's a prima donna. You know what? Earn the people's respect. That's all.
Instead of complaining about racism, those in the White House, think about the people. Represent people, serve people, and let them make those decisions.
So racist.
Only after lunch. All right, GMO Friday is up next.
We saw new standards. We set new standards. We slashed methane and brought over 100 nations together when I was at the big meeting we had in Europe. 100 nations around the globe. There's
something wrong with his medulla oblongata.
Information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origins are slightly less atrocious. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared that intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote. Oh!
No offense, but it sounds like some f***ing commie gobbledygook.
GDP, first look, first quarter, is a nasty minus 1.4. Minus 1.4. We haven't had a minus sign since that nasty second quarter, COVID-related in 2020.
I think what you're seeing is enormous growth in the country that was affected by everything from COVID and the COVID blockages that occurred along the way.
Why don't you wake up and smell what you shoveling?
We spent a day at a popular black-owned convenience shop in Morven, a town in Anson that is almost 100% black, hanging out with entrepreneurs, nurses, and veterans.
People right here don't believe in the government too much.
Do you feel like the Democratic Party has done much for black people in the last couple years?
Taking us down through there, that's about it. Taking all our shit. Like the rest of them, they ain't gonna do nothing for us.
All right. Well, you have it there.
There you go. What's up? How you? Good.
What's made you feel like voting isn't worth it?
For you to sit there and you see your elders say something to the town hall or something like that, and nothing's being done about it, after a while it just becomes a non-factor in your life. You just feel like, I'm gonna just do what I gotta do, survive on a day-to-day, make a way for my family and everything like that. Politics don't really matter.
Has Biden and generally the Democratic Party, have they fulfilled promises that they've made over the last couple of years?
To me, in a small town like this, it really doesn't matter who you have in office. The effect that we experience is the same. It don't matter if it's Biden, it don't matter if it's Trump, it don't matter if it's Obama or Clinton or Bush. It really doesn't matter. What we feel down here is exactly the same. You know, they can never even tell us who the president is, and we really still going to be exactly the same. You know what I mean?
Cynthia Wallace and Pastor Alvin Burney aren't going to wait for any national politicians to come to rural North Carolina. Whether on the pavement or at the pulpit, every weekend they'll listen.
Glad to see you.
Do people still believe things can change here?
I think they want to believe that. I think it's up to me. I think it's up to other advocates to inspire that change.
Mr. Secretary, there have been over 1 million plus individuals put into proceedings or released into the United States on your watch. I've asked multiple Border Patrol personnel, not the union, mind you, if we double, triple, quadruple the CBP budget, would that 1 million release go down? And they categorically said no, it would go up. Do you agree, yes or no?
I'm not sure I understand your question, Congressman. With the addition...
With the number of people being released in the United States under current law, would it go down no matter how much you increased your budget? And it would not, as they said. Do you agree, yes or no?
Congressman, if I understand your question correctly, when individuals are in the United States and they make a claim for asylum...
So the number would not go down is the answer, right? Yes or no? That's what they said, and I think you just answered it. It would not go down. The only plan that you offer, the plan you just offered, is to process aliens faster and encourage more to come. We know that to be true. I know it's true. You know it's true. Cartels know it's true, and people around the world know it's true, and that's why people are coming.
That is false.
The Secure, it's not false.
Yes, it is.
The entirety of your plan says that. The Secure Fence Act of 2006 says what? That the Secretary of Homeland Security shall take all actions the Secretary determines necessary to achieve and maintain operational control over the entire international land and maritime borders. Will you testify under oath right now? Do we have operational control, yes or no?
Yes, we do. And
we have operational control of the borders.
Yes, we do. And Congressman, we are working to...
Listen what operational control defined. In this section, the term operational control means the prevention of all unlawful entries into the United States, including entries by terrorists, other unlawful aliens, instruments of terrorism, narcotics, and other contraband. Do you stand behind your testimony that we have operational control in light of this definition?
I do. And Congressman, I think the Secretary of Homeland Security would have said the same thing in 2020 and in 2019.
No, the Secretary would have at least had a basis for saying that we have some sort of control of the border. But the fact is, we currently have people flowing across the border, including dangerous narcotics and dangerous members of terrorists, which your own agency sent a letter to my office after 8 months. We sent a letter saying there are 42 people on the terrorist watch list that are in the United States. But you just said to Mr. Jordan, you don't even know where the hell they are. And that's what you're saying is operational control, including entries by terrorists and unlawful aliens? It's not. It's not operational control. Mr. Secretary, let me ask you a question. When we're looking ahead and we're talking about asylum, okay? Here, if the officer determines at the time of the interview that an alien has a credible fear of persecution, the alien shall be detained for further consideration. Mandatory detention. Any alien subject to the procedures under this clause shall be detained, pending a final determination of credible fear of persecution. Is everyone being detained? Yes or no?
No, and as a matter of fact, Congressman, that is an issue that is before the United States Supreme Court. And
the fact of the matter is our law says they should be detained, and your agency is releasing people on purpose in order to flood the zone and make sure that more people can come to the United States. And you use parole to do it. Parole of aliens within the following groups have been detained. Come down here on a case-by-case basis for urgent humanitarian reasons or significant public benefit. Yet your office is using parole. But when you use parole, the fact is they're not showing back up to ICE. Your own letter to Senator Johnson, to this committee, have acknowledged they're not showing back up to ICE. How can you be saying that you have operational control or that we're securing the United States when they're not showing back up?
Congressman, are you actually interested in the facts and the law?
Yeah,
Because
I'm reading you the law, and I'm actually talking to you about the facts about who's into this country.
Actually, you're
now let's actually go to something that's
Chairman, can the witness be allowed to answer the question?
Well, there wasn't a question there to be answered.
Gentleman's
on that
time.
point. Now let's talk about the damage being done to the United States of America. Mr. Secretary, do you know what this is? This is a mobile morgue, a body trailer, needed by counties in South Texas overwhelmed by dead migrants. That particular trailer is filled with these bodies, 27 bodies that were stored in this mobile morgue in South Texas with dead bodies of migrants. Dead bodies like this one found on a ranch just 3 weeks ago in South Texas. A dead migrant. Somehow that's compassion. How about the dead bodies found by migrants? Compassion. How about the ranchers who had to walk out of their door, and this is what they faced. Gentlemen with rocks threatening a rancher in South Texas, only able to be saved when they were able to bring their dogs out to scare the people away in order to save themselves. Or the fact that you've got houses being attacked, you've got livestock dead on the side because we've got ranches wide open. How about the little girl here with a brand on her arm? A little girl with a brand on her arm because of your policies. A little girl here in the desert found by ranchers trying to save their life. And how about the lost voices for people dying from fentanyl? The tens of thousands of Americans dying from fentanyl. Faces of Americans across this country dying because of fentanyl pouring into our country.
Time of the gentleman has expired.
You know full well.
The time of the gentleman has expired, Ms.
Encouraging people to come here, harming Texas and harming this country. You know it. And you're ignoring
the time of the gentleman has expired. He no longer has time to slander the secretary. Ms. Scanlon.
Not slander. You know what slander is?
Thank you, Secretary Mayorkas.
Ms. Scanlon. Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you, Secretary Mayorkas. Over here. Thank you for being here today.
Here's a news flash from Northern New York Times preparing yet another story about how this show is racist because we support national borders. And if that sounds like a familiar attack, well, because it is. This has got to be the 10th or 27th or 217th story just like this the New York Times has run, and all of them are pretty much identical. Racist, racist, racist. The latest version of the story is being written by a kid called Nick Confessore. Confessore seems a little more self-important than most of them, but essentially he's the same as the last guy and the guy before him because on some level all these guys are the same. They're obedient little establishment defenders who will say anything to please their bosses. They're suck-ups, brown-nosers, lick-spittles. Not people you'd want to have dinner with. Anyway, the New York Times is calling us racist again, and we're still in the air, which shows you how well it works. But you've got to wonder, why do they keep doing this? If you wanted to criticize this show, there are plenty of things you could say. We've got a ton of supposedly controversial opinions on a million different topics. We talk about them every night. Big finance is wrecking America. Marijuana actually isn't medicine. Russiagate is totally idiotic, and so is the war it's now causing. Feminism is a corporate lie. Marriage makes you happy. So does raising your own children, and so on. We even think UFOs are real. So in some ways, by the standards of the New York Times, we're pretty far out. But they never mention any of that. And the funny thing is, the one thing we do not have exotic opinions on is race. Our view of race is really simple. We believe Martin Luther King. We don't think your skin color is the most important thing about you. We think all people were created by God and should therefore be judged by what they do, not by how they look. We say that a lot, and we mean it. Most Americans strongly agree with that. And we, in fact, would assume that most reporters of the New York Times agree with that. Only Nazis think your race defines you. And we just don't believe there are a ton of people in this country, even on the left, who actually believe something that evil. So why do they keep calling us racist? Well, to make us shut up, obviously. They tried the same thing with Trump for years. They're doing it right now to Elon Musk, of course. If you don't obey them, they denounce you as a racist. Why do they do this? They do it because it works. But here's the thing. It can only work if you play along with it. And we don't plan to.
So my team put together this clip of the woman who's going to be running this thing, Nina Jankowicz, which sometimes they say, don't watch it until the show. Just watch it with the audience. Listen to it for the first time with the audience. And that's going to happen now. This is her singing a song about disinformation And it's from February 2021.
It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. It's how you hide a little lie. When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo, and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote. Oh, information laundering is really quite ferocious. It's when a huckster takes some lies and makes them sound precocious by saying them in Congress or a mainstream outlet. So disinformation's origin seems slightly less atrocious.
Whew. Oh my God. Cheryl, did that just happen?
Nutty. It's just nutty.
With her British accent, she's a good little singer. I'll give her that. And I like her pizzazz, her flair. I really don't want her censoring me because she doesn't seem to have two nickels to rub together in between her ears from the look of it. I don't think she should be in charge of what I say on the internet.
I'm thinking, Megan, that one of the other big takeaways from this, naming this agency or whatever it's going to be, it's proof, in my view, what we already knew was that Twitter was acting in that capacity, as are other big tech outlets. If Twitter were still acting in that capacity, I don't think we would have seen this rushed, hurried announcement of something no one's had a chance to look at or really consider. But this is the backup plan with the notion that Twitter's now not going to be able to act is one of the biggest censors and information shapers that we've had since 2016.
The timing is very coincidental, isn't it? I mean, no sooner does Elon announce he's got a deal than suddenly we get this announcement. And in the midst of Elon's attempt to buy it, we had Barack Obama last week trying to lecture us all on how disinformation is such a huge problem. Purveyor of lie of the year, mind you. Not just little lie, not just occasional lie. Lie of the year. You got to tell a big whopper in order to get that designation. That's the man now who's spending his post-presidency lecturing us about disinformation. And then the other shoe drops with this announcement post Elon's official announcement on Monday.
Is it worth backing up just a little bit? Because I dissected this for one of my books. The beginning of the notion that someone needed to step in and curate our information is not that old. In 2015, there was little to no talk about such things. And in September of 2016 is when this idea was first introduced on the national stage in its current form, with fake news in its modern form used by a nonprofit called First Draft, who I learned was actually funded by Alphabet, the parent company of Google, started up at the beginning of the election cycle, generating and creating the notion of fake news. And then within a couple of weeks, then President Obama gave a speech at Carnegie Mellon that said, for the first time I heard anybody say something like this, that somebody needed to step in and start curating our information in this wild, wild west media environment. And I remember at the time, Megan, going, what? Like, no one's asking for that. And slowly, well, actually rather rapidly, but slowly over time, it's all almost as if we've come to accept that. Instead of, we're arguing the terms instead of arguing that that is even done at all.
Right.
That third parties influenced by government and corporations are determining what we can see and hear and think.
This is why it's such good news that Elon Musk will be in charge of at least one of these major social media companies. At least there's going to be one where there appears to be somebody who's on the side of free speech running it. And prior to this week, we didn't have that.
It's true. And I was wondering if you had any recent experiences, because I sure do, with social media. Have they shaped or censored or banned some of the stuff that you've been reporting on and doing interviews about?
Well, we had to be very careful with we interviewed RFK Jr. A couple of weeks ago, and we knew very well he's been stricken from the internet. I mean, he's been banned from Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. So he's been basically erased. So our goal was to get him on the air in a way that could live, right? It was pointless for us to do an interview with him that would then just get banned. You know what I mean? Like that's pointless. So we understood we had to be careful with it and we had to sort of cross certain T's. But man, it's like, it would have been nice to just have a conversation with him without having to worry about the censors. You know, I mean, we are kind of getting a little, I don't know, un-American. It's starting to feel a little un-American.
Well, this is the goal. And I've talked about this before. The ideal for the propagandists and the censors is we just start censoring ourselves, so they don't really even have to step in. And I can't tell you how many journalists and news organizations executives have told me over the past couple of years, they don't publish what they want to publish, even though they believe it's true or a valid viewpoint or a valid scientific study, because they're self-censoring in order to survive on what they see as these powerful platforms that are crucial to them being a thing. They're afraid that if they cross a certain line and get canceled, as one of them told me, what sort of Pyrrhic victory is it to be able to report the truth, but then to be canceled entirely? So here all of us are trying to dance around the truth or certain viewpoints or scientific studies in order to please the censors who are improperly censoring to begin with. And that's a really dangerous place I think we find ourselves in.
My team is reminding me RFK Jr. is on Twitter. It's the one platform he's been allowed to remain on. You know, one of the things that we did to sort of keep the interview up was to put a bunch of links to the CDC, the WHO, all that, you know, at the end of our interview on YouTube. Honestly, Cheryl, I don't care. It's like, that doesn't bother me. A lot of our audience was like, oh, what's that doing there? You know, those organizations have lied to us from the beginning. Agreed. I know that. But to me, it seems like a small price to pay to get your interview posted and to have it remain up on YouTube. I don't own YouTube. I don't have a right to be on YouTube. YouTube has every right to shut me down and say, I don't want you on here. It's not pleasant. I don't want it. I would consider it viewpoint discrimination, but they have every right to do that. So if they're basically going to say, you can put on this guy we think is part of the disinformation dozen, and it saves my interview to throw a couple links at the end, or, you know, sometimes they throw up the little for information on COVID. You know, you see that at underneath the video, go to whatever. I don't care. It's different. That's different to me than what you're talking about, though, where you actually don't ask the tough questions or you steer clear of the third rail subjects because you're afraid, for good reason, that they're going to shut you down.
Well, I agree, but think about it. You and I both know, and I do the same thing. When we're posting CDC information, we are posting disinformation in some cases that we know is not true or is proven to be inaccurate or is put out by people who have been sorely misleading, if not entirely wrong. And I've done some expose. I don't know if you interviewed Congressman Massey when he caught CDC and top executives and scientists who he recorded on the phone admitting that they were putting out false information about COVID vaccine being effective in people that had already had COVID. And they admitted this to him and then continued on. So you can only say this is an intentional intent to mislead. Went on to put out in public the same disinformation over and over again after they acknowledged it was untrue. And yet here we are then having to post links to these sources that we know are disproven.
For more disinformation.
In order to protect our ability to say things that we believe are true.
On the wrong side of the tracks, my facts indisputable. Following your path is always refutable. Is that a suitable way to portray? Painting on canvas of hip-hop today. Journey to the back of your mind. Sometimes it illuminates the front of your brain. Stay in your lane. The sheer lack of respect is cause for concern. Early morning workout, letting it burn. Better listen close, Confucius say. Bringing this sound from around the way. Lisa, Angela, Pamela, Renee. If they're down for the cause, let them join the fray. Okay, getting it down with no delay. Certified lyrical spice from Bombay. Just like Reader's Digest, my quest is to keep your blood boiling, never controlling. Do-be-dum-dum-dum-dum. Let me ease your mind. Take this as your sign.
The minds of those that know.
course predictable. Lost sight of the end game. Turn off the propane. Unless the rule of the game is destruction. Can't have a baseline without the percussion. For this discussion, I'm your therapist. Fever is raging without the pre-staging. Reality show drama is the norm. Take cues from Shaolin, Killer Bee Swarm. Took another pause for the cause regroup. No need to chop up, quantize the loot. Make sure the knot is secure, no back door. Implemented, firewall prevented it from ever making way to the surface. Double the hook line, I do it on purpose. So you can know it's coming from the soul. 18th green, aim for the flagpole. Do it up, dum. Let me ease your mind. Take this as your sign. Don't walk away. Never walk away. I got more to say. Left on the side of the road, nowhere to go. Leave it in the minds of those that know. Planting my seeds.